Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits. And I'm not just a Thos, I'm also a complete Charley. Although in musical theatre terms, that does put me in very good company. Because just off the top of my head, there are a number of musicals with the word Charley in it. Charley Girl, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Where's Charley, just to name four. And that last one, Where's Charley, is actually quite an interesting musical, not least because of what we've never seen. We all know that many musical shows have cut numbers or cut scenes, sometimes cut characters or cut actors. For cut, of course, read sacked. But not many musicals have a cut film. But that's exactly what happened to Where's Charley. It started off in 1948 as a fantastic Frank Loesser musical starring Ray Bolger, most famous of course for being the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, but he had a huge career in musical theatre. And the show itself was based on Charley's Aunt, one of the great Victorian farces. Such was the success of the show, it ran for over 700 performances on Broadway and then came to London and was a massive success again on the West End with Norman Wisdom in the title role. That being the case, it was then filmed with the original Broadway cast. But, and this is the thing I find most amazing, the film was suppressed soon after its initial run and has never been released on video, DVD or Blu-ray. And you'll find nothing more than a clip on YouTube. And, because there was a strike going on in America at the time that the Broadway show was on, its original Broadway cast recording was never made. And therefore, the only real one to go for is the London recording. So this poor but very successful show from 1948 didn't have, if you like, any children. The film was suppressed and remains suppressed to this day. And there was no original Broadway cast recording. Which is a pity, because the score is a Loesser score. Actually, in both senses. It is a Frank Loesser score and therefore very good. It just happens not to be one of the best Frank Loesser scores like Guys and Dolls or How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. But it does have some wonderful gems. And one of those is called Once in Love with Amy. And it's one of those songs I find tends to wander around my head the moment I thought about it, and not really depart. A recording of that song was a huge success in Britain when it was recorded by Norman Wisdom. As I say, he was the star of the London production of Where's Charley, and was really in his heyday, both as a musical theatre star, but also as a film comedian. And that recording of Norman Wisdom singing Once in Love with Amy was later re-released with his latest hit called Don't Laugh at Me 'Cause I'm a Fool, which came out in 1953 and was the big song from his film Trouble in Store, a comedy set in a big shop. And that idea is the basis of the show we're going to be discussing today. Now, and you're not going to believe this entire introduction has been a bit of a shaggy dog story. It's all true, and I do find it amazing that Where's Charley should have been so badly treated by history. But the whole thing has been to allow me to talk about songs in supermarkets. Because today we're going to be talking about a show I saw at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe called Unexpected Item in the Bagging Area, a phrase known to anyone who's used the self-scanners at a supermarket. Now, it is just a light piece of comedy, and it's set in an independent supermarket, and perhaps doesn't mean that much, and as such doesn't really have much of a message. But what it does have is an excellent score, and that score is by Laurence T-Stannard, who you may remember from a few years ago when I interviewed him about his show One Good Soul. Well, Laurence and I met up again in Edinburgh this year to talk about the score to his new show, Unexpected Item in the Bagging Area. So, in a minute we'll hear that conversation. But first, let's hear a song that we'll be talking about in that discussion, as you'll hear. It's called, and why not, Fish Cake.
I sit here every day, surrounded by my fish. like doubles, and my love it starts to snowball. But she never looks at my display. It's a truth I can't forget. 18 hours are in our way, and cod doesn't sit well with baguette. She makes my heart self-rising, and my grease is not appetizing. I'm in such turmoil, covered in fish oil. It seeps through my hairnet. When she smiles, I start to sweat. And that's not the only thing that's wet. Maybe my heart will break, but you and me can make fish cake. I wanna put her in the oven and bake up that sweet lovin'. She will bring the batter, I will bring the hake. Yeah, I wanna make fish cake. Yeah, I wanna make fish cake. She better break open my oyster. Her soggy bottom's gonna get moister. I wanna have some tasty fun, put my fish fingers in her bun. She's my aphrodisiac, she's my gooey pastry snack. There's not a single doubt that I want to eat her trout. Maybe my heart will break, but you and me can make fish cake. I wanna put him in the oven and bake up that sweet lovin'. She will bring the batter, I will bring the hake. Yeah, I wanna make fish cake. Yeah, I wanna make fish cake. I sit here every day, surrounded by my baps. Something's overheating on my tray, and I wonder if perhaps there's ever been anyone like her, whose beauty makes my whisk stir. Her skin is soft as butter, and my stomach starts to flutter. She makes my heart self-rising, and I find her mesmerizing. The cookie mixture overflows, my love for her just grows and grows. The girl makes me so dizzy, and the baking soda's fizzy. I can't hide anymore, I want everyone to see that the girl I love is me. Maybe my heart will break. I love myself, but you and me can make fish. I love myself. I wanna put 'em in the oven. I love. Bake up that sweet love. I love. She will bring the batter. I love the hake. Yeah, I wanna make fish cake. Yeah, I wanna make fish cake. I love myself. I wanna make fish cake. Clean up in aisle 4.
Hiya, I'm Laurence T-Stannard. I'm the composer of Unexpected Item in the Bagging Area.
Which is currently playing the Edinburgh Fringe this year and is a hoot, if I may say. So I think we ought to say that people may remember you from a show a couple of years ago, which impressed me, up here at the Edinburgh Fringe, which was...
One Good Soul it was called. It was based on a Brechtian, The Good Soul of Szechuan, The Good Person of Szechuan. Yeah.
And now that was quite a dark piece, wasn't it, comparatively,
Yeah.
I noticed. It was trying to find a good soul amongst essentially a corrupted environment. And yet... 2 years later, the Laurence T-Stannard songbook presents a very, very different kind of show. Do you want briefly to explain it as far as you feel able to?
Yeah.
And then we'll take it from there, I think.
Yeah, it's like nothing I've ever done before, really. It's a character comedy musical set in a supermarket, lots of absurdist comedy, a show where the concept is the best thing, and it's funny in its little ways, and it's kind of observational, surrealist humour. The plot is kind of nonsensical, and I think if you get to the show, you end up loving it. And if you go wanting a plot that really makes you feel something, then that's probably not it, but that's fine.
Well, it does sort of have touching moments, oddly, but I would agree that the tone is mostly absurdist,
Yes.
I would think. I mean, I think there's some genuine odd... Well, we'll get onto the characters in a minute. There's a few characters I think have moments and you think, oh, there's a heart there, or there's or actually some affection which has been, in that very British way, sort of hidden through teasing,
Sure.
which actually does come through. Now, how did you get attached to this project? Before we were recording, you mentioned that your writers were, let's quote, insane. So,
they're fabulous.
Did you, as a group, decide you were going to do something, or were you approached, or how did it come to be, and when?
So this is Cambridge University Musical Theatre Society show, the society that previously launched Six and Hot Gay Time Machine and that kind of thing.
And I think it has Rust up here this year.
Yes,
right? Yes,
Rust is also reviewing and playing fabulously. And Amaya Holman and Jamie Bisping, who are two Cambridge footlights, approached me saying they wanted to write the musical and they'd like me to write the music. They pitched to me this show at the time with just 5 different characters, a couple of cashiers and people who work in the supermarket. And the idea for this opening song, Fish Cakes, which is the second song of the show, which is this love duet between the baker and the fishmonger of the supermarket.
And Fish Cakes, of course, I think, this is the cleverness of it. It's,
Yes.
Fish Cakes being the fish that she deals with,
Yes.
and the baking that the other one
Exactly.
deals with, and the fact you can find a way forward in mutuality.
Yes.
Through Fish Cake. Yes, quite absolutely. So I suppose you say it was quite lightly sketched to you when it was presented to you, so
Yes.
5 people. And so how does one develop an idea as sort of light as that? Particularly, let's be honest, it is a light piece in that sense.
Oh, hugely.
It's a frothy confection, and if you take it at that level, it is fantastic. I
Yes.
enjoyed it very much. I think the score is great, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that to flatter you. I thought it was very bubbly, enjoyable, and full of different flavours as well, which is very
Sure.
nice. But we'll get onto the score in a minute. So, approximately when was this?
So they approached me in December of last year, and then we kind of came on very, very quickly with little bits. We wrote Fish Cakes almost instantly.
What a sentence that is.
Yeah, it was great fun. They're so alive and so happy to bounce ideas off each other and have them instantly thrown back and forth. I think we ended up writing stuff very quickly. The writing sessions when we were all in the room with the piano were just so much fun, and everything got done so quickly. And songs like the opening number, which is kind of a mishmash of 7 different musical styles as we introduce all our different characters, and
It's almost like motif in that strange
Yeah,
sense, isn't it?
yeah. It's
that's a heavy word to be using in this context, but
well, that's kind of where it gets its grounding, really, because every time you want to introduce a new person, you want to introduce a new musical idea with it, and that's building into the kind of absurdist comedy is the very different styles that all get shoved together seemingly into one score.
it is a fusion piece, isn't it? in that
Yes.
sense? Absolutely. So were you involved in the writing of it then? You say you were in the room for the songs, obviously. Did you help develop the structure of the piece for sort of a narrative arc such as there is? Or?
I can't claim much that I did much to write the show. Plot-wise, they're fabulous, and they work really, really well as a duo, so it was kind of they wrote book and lyrics and I wrote music, yeah.
So, I suppose, when did it come to placing the songs? Is that where you said, actually, I think we need a song here, or had they said, no, we think there's a gap for a song? Or is that more organic?
Yeah, it was very collaborative in that way. Once they introduced the characters, all the characters that they wanted to be in the show to me, and we wrote that opening number, it was very clear, especially given that at that point the plot wasn't set in stone, but almost the characters were. That's what kind of built everything. So therefore, it was clear that we needed to have the big evil song for Lucifer to
An unsubtle villain.
Yes. For him to come out and so on, and introduce Karen and introduce Bridget and how you're going to save the supermarket from
Yes. Do you want to give us the plot briefly then, without ruining the ending?
So we open to the supermarket, and it's just your average supermarket, deliberately nondescript.
It's kind of independent, isn't it?
Yes.
If it's anything, it's quite.
Yes,
The supermarket.
The supermarket,
yes.
yeah.
The definitive article.
So we have Nikki and Vicky, who are our cashiers. We have Bridget, the baker, who's employee of the month every month.
Except one.
Yeah, except one, yeah.
With comic consequences historically. So.
And Phyllis, the fishmonger. And then we also have Karen, who is the lady who eats the cat food and is always in the supermarket, but no one particularly knows why. We're not sure if she's an employee or what she is, but she's very odd. And we have Sammy, the salad man, secretly Lucifer in disguise, who's plotting to destroy the supermarket and set up pets at home instead. So the crux of the plot is everyone trying to save the supermarket because the health inspectors are coming because Lucifer has set rats in the place and yeah.
As a pet-loving person, that
Yes.
would be an entirely appropriate thing for him to do. Yes, I think that's a fair gallop through the plot. Its comic value, if I may say, I think is almost almost entirely based actually in the interaction between the characters. I did love the two cashiers and their slightly bitchy but affectionate relationship. We were saying at the beginning about actually having moments of touchingness.
Yes.
What you do get, I think, is a sense that they are friends, even though they sort of take pops at each other all the time, and therefore something that happens towards the end of the piece actually, I think, has an odd effect on. Well, the day I was in the audience, I think the audience were sort of saddened in a comic sense, but saddened within the context of the piece we'd seen, that they were likely to be separated.
Yeah, I think that's the lovely thing about a character piece, where everything comes from the characters, because you get quite invested, and if the plot doesn't work out, I mean, there's quite an Avenue Q-esque end that nothing really matters anyway, but lots happened to the characters, and you do feel something, even though you think nothing, net value of the show, nothing's changed.
Yes, I mean, as I said, frothy confection, but the characters have had a journey. Which I think is surprising. And when I say a light piece, it sounds so damning, but I don't mean it that way at all.
Yeah.
I tell you, it felt like a sitcom in that sense, possibly a 1970s sitcom. Yeah. Are You Being Served came to mind as a department store kind of sitcom, and there have been sitcoms set in supermarkets. I remember several of them a long time ago, by the way. But I'm interested to know how you. With a reputation for having, I don't know if you do have this reputation, but having done your previous show and the seriousness of it, Brechtian dissonance isn't necessarily the first thing that would come to mind when people were looking for someone to write a score for this, although I suppose comedy and Brecht are not a million miles away from each other, in fact hold hands a lot. So did you feel that it was in your range of things that you could do easily, or was it a sort of an envelope pushing exercise for you as well?
Sure, well, since writing One Good Soul and going to university and essentially getting to know so many Cambridge Footlights and doing the pantomime and all that kind of thing that they're so famous for, I've ended up watching a lot of comedy and writing a lot and more just learning how music can fit into that. So I was so excited to get working on Unexpected with Mary and Jamie, and felt I had, I don't know, listened to enough musical comedy now that I could at least put something forward that might be relevant. And it's great fun, and I think as a composer been really interesting to work out how you can make music serve the drama, and if that drama is a message that the whole world's evil and no deed is really a good deed, or that thing is to make a joke land properly with a twinkle, that they're both difficult to achieve musically, and they therefore both have similarities.
It's finding the purpose, isn't it, in fact, actually?
Yeah, of course.
Which brings us therefore on to the songs in the piece, because obviously comic songs, I think, are notoriously difficult and often fall flat, or can fall flat.
Yeah.
I've used this anecdote several times this Edinburgh with various people I've spoken to, but I don't know if you know this. Cole Porter used to say that for a good song you had to have two ideas. You had to have the idea for the song, but you also had to have an idea for the ending. And so often you see people who've written songs, particularly comic songs, where they have a lovely idea which is comic, but have no way of bringing it to some kind of full stop.
Sure.
And obviously, in some sense, although the story we're talking about today has an overarching narrative, it's sketchy as well, isn't it? So, there's a scene at Matilda's, and then there's a scene at a quiz night, and all this kind of stuff. So, you can sort of bolt it down into little areas.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that you said that, you've listened to musical theatre and comic songs, but listening and then being able to synthesise it yourself is, I think, quite difficult. Do you have a method by which you can write a comic song, or is it just, do you just sit at the piano and let it flow, as it were?
Well, I think so much of that, because Jamie and Maya write such fabulous lyrics that are so wild, and they tend to write content that is formed into something of a song, and then that, once we actually distill it down, then we work out what the ending, where everything kind of, in what order that is.
Oh, so it's a group practice.
Yes.
Which is probably sensible. So when they write the lyrics, but you're not just setting lyrics, though, are you? You're in the room with them.
Yeah, kind of adjusting and saying.
If you find a melody line, they can land on.
Yeah, exactly.
Too. Sorry.
So they tend to, with some stuff they've said, okay, I think we have a song of lyrics here, and then with other stuff they've said, okay, I think we have a line here, and we want to go and write
extrapolate further. Yes.
Yeah, and I think they're so amazing. I love being in the room with them and like putting something forward, and they go, okay, maybe, and then they come up with a whole stanza of something. It's like, okay, that works, and then piecing together. What you said about Cole Porter is really interesting, actually, because I think there's many times where we'd have a funny idea, and I don't know, you can kind of get away with not ending it funnily because, like, we'll just put a nice belty bit there, and they can sing the ending and it won't be funny. But I completely agree that it lands best when the comedies throughout, in the same way that most sketches fall flat without a punchline.
Yes, it's funny, isn't it? It's that idea, actually, of a punchline in a song. It may be a comic punchline to the lyric of a song, but it may not be. It may just be some way of making it end, which is an encapsulation of an idea which the audience will then go with. I find it infinitely fascinating, and I find comic songs particularly so. And because when they pay off in spades more than a joke told, for example, in prose. You act as an amplifier then, as a writer, as a composer.
And I think just at uni, having accompanied things like this, so the Footlights do these smokers every week, and
these are concert parties, aren't they?
Yeah,
yes, right.
and different kind of sketch stuff that you join in. You just work out, is it, especially on shows where it's not really a musical and they're not really songs, but they like music accompanying. I just played music in between sketches, and you just learn how to make a joke land with where you put the music, and if you're accompanying, where to not play, and just like very simple stuff that actually suddenly makes. I think an amplifier is a good word for it.
That's interesting as well then. So I'm not saying it's the same thing at all, but it sounds like you've sort of got the role of the smokers in the same way that the accompanists in cinemas may have had during the silent era, in a sense. I mean, we know, I think now, that it's a misconception to think it's always just one pianist under the film, but in the more rural cinemas and places where they showed films, that was exactly the case, often without sheet music. You're there to emphasise the emotion, positive, negative comedy, and vamp in the middle. Yeah, you can see it actually. I mean, it's a form that still survives today, because I don't know if you've been to see News Review, which is a satirical song and sketch show that's on every year up here at Edinburgh, and is the longest running satirical show in the world, I believe, having run since the 70s. They have a pianist, and that pianist amplifies those sketches where necessary, plays the music where it's a song, and also vamps in between. So, but it's a real art. I've spoken to one or two of those people over the years, and they've told me that it's they obviously once they come up with ideas, it starts to solidify. But it's knowing how to make something work better than it's already working. Yeah, I'm just rambling off here.
No, it's good.
So, do you have a particularly favourite song? I know it's. I always say it's a reductive question, but I find it interesting.
I think "Unexpected" is probably my favourite song. I have a real love of just spoken sections that work. I have a real love of words moving through music that are sometimes spoken and sometimes that are mixed and sometimes sung, and then sections that are nicely timed out so the lyrics perfectly fit in said section.
Usually.
Yeah, well, if they do it right, yeah, but you know what I mean. And I think that's great fun, writing fun backing vocals, and writing a song that allows someone to then improvise within it.
So building flexibility in, that's quite a skill. Yeah,
well, I mean, I don't know if I've done it successfully, but it's definitely something that I was thinking of whilst writing, and I really like how being in the rehearsal room with them as they're doing that, seeing that work is really rewarding, if anything.
We're back to organic again, aren't we, in that sense?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you picked that song because of the format. What you've actually described to me is that you logistically like the opportunity that it presents you in a strange sense, rather than because of its content or a particular melody line. There's no wrong answer, of course, to this question. But that suggests that you are, very versatile. But also, I think, when I say this, I mean this positively, greedy for opportunity.
Yeah,
that no song should, the AABA kind of model is redundant. You don't want everything to sound or feel the same. It's got to serve the purpose, and sometimes prose is better than lyric.
I think what I found, that the best thing about working with comedians who love musical theatre and are very musical, but are not first and foremost musicians, is that they just volunteer information and content that's not necessarily in 4-bar phrases, which means naturally you end up composing just to fit around, and then once you've fitted around, then they'll fit around, and so it's structure wise it's very new and free, and it's not at all about creating something that's like, here's a song and I get to put another chorus there.
So this is songwriting as collage almost.
Sure, yeah.
Because that gives you, in a strange sense, you think of collage as being a recreation of art from existing sources. That isn't this then in this case. It is very much your creation and their creation, both separately and together. There will be occasions, presumably, when you think, "Oh, that's a really clever idea they've come up with. I can turn that into a lyrical phrase to fit." And sometimes you say, "No, that works much better as it is, and I'll find an underbed." You were given free hand to do that, presumably.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, and equally, I love in terms of telling the story and trying to make those characters work. My other favourite bit of the show is like 7A, one of the reprises where Lucy Fur is persuading Phyllis to help him in his scheme, and Lucy does that by singing a song that Phyllis has sung earlier, and then when Phyllis is persuaded, she sings to the tune of what Lucy sung earlier, and it's just that kind of use of theme, really quite just to achieve a purpose.
But it gives a richer feel, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and reprises that feel like they're doing something just for the plot and not just because we liked the song earlier.
Yes, let's hear this again.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny enough, I've just seen a version of Sweet Charity.
Yeah.
and they reprise There's Got to Be Something Better Than This at the end. On the Broadway show, apparently, in order to make sure you understood that it was an optimistic ending and not a downbeat ending, they had a kind of neon sign that said, and she lived hopefully happily ever after. So you saw, because I don't know if you know the piece, but she's sort of jilted at the end.
Yeah.
So she ends up where she started from, but she's such a great optimist.
Yeah.
But the reprise of the song is faintly defiant, but those words make it so. In Edinburgh, they've not used the words.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, the reprise of the ending, of that song rather, at the ending, gives it a very downbeat, that she can never escape the terrible world she lives in. And so you can reprises have to be used carefully, because sometimes they have a greater meaning than just just than, as you say, hearing the song again.
Yeah.
What songs cause you the greatest difficulty? And of course the follow-up question to that is, and why?
So when writing this show, I wanted so strongly it to be a musical, it to be quirky, it maybe not particularly to fit into a category other than that. It's definitely not a plot-driven musical. You're not going to walk away crying. And that's so fun, and that's what we were aiming for. So it's almost distressing when people don't get the show. They say, "Oh, what's happened? What's changed? Why are we watching the show?"
But really, it's fun.
Yes, so. and that's the point. It's all about character, and it's just about it's a comment on supermarkets and life being a bit pointless and nothing. It's very fun. So therefore, songs like "Quiz Her," which is the opening number to the fundraiser scene, is basically just a fun song about a quiz that's quite funny in places, and also it's just like a bit of a bop, and it sounds quite. It functions as a song, and there's so many places in musicals where a song is just a song, and especially in Edinburgh, when you have an hour, giving a 4-minute song the only purpose is to entertain as a song is scary. So that's writing that and going, the plot. Not that there's much plot to be advanced anyway, but we're definitely not advancing the plot here. We're literally just.
This is a breath of comedy.
Yeah. So things like that are confusing, but once we kind of really defined what our show was, suddenly it has space for that because it's entertaining and we want to hear the characters sing well, but and that kind of thing.
But it also adds colour, isn't it? So it's not treading water. It's still helping to develop the characters, and of course it also has. I mean, and this is the great thing that music allows. That concertinaing of time, because actually, if it had been turned into a quiz show sketch, and much less a song, then actually it would probably be 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And actually, so you whiz us through a moment of joy in a way that's seamless and works very effectively in taking us towards the denouement, because it's towards the end of the piece, isn't it? So, has it changed much over its development period, either in terms of narrative arc or as in score?
So,
how many babies have you killed? By which I mean your work.
Yeah. I've only killed one big baby, actually. And
a lovely sentence that is, by the way.
Yeah, and then one other reprise of a baby, which is kind of a nephew or something. It's fine. So we started writing. We kind of had a rough script by April, and we were writing songs, and the first 4 songs or so were written, and we're feeling good about it. And again, trying to find what the show was and why it had no plot. So there was a plot at the end that the supermarket was going to be saved, and it was fine. And then we thought, well, there's no need to particularly end. We're commenting on just general life and how funny it is when people just sit next to each other all day, every day, and
the diurnal round.
Yeah. So why Why does it need to end that way? And up until very recently, details of the plot, as in how it finished up at the end, were changing. Another of my favourite numbers, Lucky Dip at the end, was basically just saying, take what you're given, enjoy your life, because life's a lucky dip. You just get what you're given, and that's fine. I said Avenue Q earlier, and I think we took a lot of inspiration from that idea of you end a show and you think, oh gosh, loads has happened, but actually, perspective, not much has happened. Let's just grin and keep going, because why not?
It's incident, isn't it, without necessarily a lot of meaning.
Yeah, exactly. So in that way, the final bit of the plot has changed tons, because we weren't quite sure how to frame it. Equally, after the final number, we could have put an extra scene on the end to tie things up a bit.
Coda.
And we're never really sure, would that be fun? If the people are really invested, it's just another funny. Equally, we're so pushed for time at the Fringe and that kind of thing. So it's so hard to judge where an audience will be with the characters. Are they happy that nothing's really changed? Maybe you've got fired, but then you might not be. And it's the plot has changed lots, and the songs are kind of altered around that. The reprise is more the opening 5 songs of Bag for Life, Fish Cakes, Unexpected, Fundraiser, and Quizzer, and then at the end, Lucky Dip. They're the kind of framework, and then the reprises have changed massively, because essentially that's where the plot happens. Yeah.
Yes, and they give resonance, don't they, rather than you're not introducing new material, you're just re-emphasising or re-amplifying something that's occurred again.
So I think we kind of introduce the characters, and then we go, so what actually happens? And then, that's...
Now, bearing in mind that you are, and I think I can say this, a Fringe veteran, and your previous show was, you were right in the heart of everything in that one, weren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you were practically producer if you weren't.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you been able to draw from your previous experiences into this, whether practically or creatively? What have you carried from your past into this?
Sure. I've been really lucky on this to have such an amazing music team that, not that I would ever... I'm very selfish usually and want to be completely hands-on. And I felt so confident to give it over to a music director and assistant music director and band, because I had complete trust in them. And I think taking is just that sitting only as a composer, and sitting in the back and watching and commenting and not doing the teaching and the leading, has made it really interesting during the rehearsal process. It freed up so much time for me to think and change and adjust and do little bits. And I think having done a show where I tried to do everything, it's made me realise that you can...
There are better ways of doing it? Yes.
Yeah, completely. And it's such a simple moral to take away, but share.
But it's really interesting to me, actually, that you said, well, what it does, it frees you up to do some thinking.
Yeah.
Because actually you do get that sense from a lot of people, whether you speak to them directly or just from their shows, but actually that once they've got to a version of it, they've been so busy with the terrible logistical aspects of putting it on anywhere, and let alone in Edinburgh,
that's just what's going to be there. And
exactly. But you haven't people don't have a chance to digest, brew, think over, and let it develop and develop really. Yeah.
Because Jamie and Amaya are Cambridge Footlights and they're so sensationally busy, Amaya's doing It Takes 3 to Tango, and Jamie is doing Cambridge Footlights tour show Look Alive. They've been in various places whilst everything's been going on, and I've been kind of present and also not, and it's been really nice because basically we're able to write the show, give it over, then have a look, and take it back.
You can dip in and out.
And then exactly as you say, think actually a lot about what we're creating and not just how we're creating it, because otherwise you sit in the room and work out, this harmony isn't working practically because the person can't pitch it, instead of thinking actually, what is this song, why are we doing this, which is much more interesting.
And was the song always written for the time format? Because the timing is always difficult in Edinburgh, isn't it? You've often people... Well, I saw a show the other day which had a brilliant score, but the narrative just didn't cohere.
Yeah.
It was an hour long, and I've subsequently learned that it's a 2-hour show which they tried to edit down to 1 hour, and that is a lot of edit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some serious and important stuff has got missing, and therefore it's become incoherent because the format has defeated them. Whereas a lot of people write shows which are 1.5 hours or maybe 1 hour and 15, and you can perhaps edit those down or go for a longer slot. Did you know that you were writing for 56 minutes?
We knew always that we were writing for this Fringe slot, because I think the show is a concept musical.
Yeah.
And we know that an audience don't particularly want to watch for 2.5 hours with an
No.
interval, a character comedy musical where lots of the stuff is just fun and you enjoy it and you should walk out going, that was enjoyable.
But 2.5 hours might be a bit much of it.
Yeah, exactly. And similarly, trying to put up, I think, so many successes of the Fringe. Not that they're all frivolous, but they don't try and have a complete arc.
Yeah.
Even if they're the most gripping pieces of theatre, it's because they know exactly where the time scale that you rush through. It feels normal. It's not that you've done 2 hours in an hour. You've just done an hour in an hour, and that's as far as you've gone.
I think you make an interesting observation, actually, also about the fact that the pace of life during the Fringe for the punter is quick.
Yeah.
Not just for the performers, but I rush from show to show. A lot of people get as many shows in as they can. Even people who don't, maybe seeing 2 or 3 a day, which is much more than anyone would normally see.
Yeah.
So instead of lingering, we're sort of used to the. When I say this, I don't mean this in any way pejoratively, but it feels like a conveyor belt and time is sped up. I finish a show and I think, in half an hour I'm going to be in another show. I better move towards that venue.
Yeah.
I think there's so many people doing that kind of thing. It's odd when I then occasionally go and see something like the Royal Scottish Conservatoire's full version, which they take a full musical. I saw Legally, yes, and it was 2.5 hours because it's the full version, and it's lovely. And thankfully, it was at the beginning of the day because, in a sense, I felt I could move into a 2.5 hour show. I might be less keen to see a 2.5 hour show at 8 o'clock in the evening because I'd had a day of boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
I think that's the Edinburgh bubble, isn't it?
Yes, and equally, I think if the first show you see in Edinburgh is particularly quick, you go, God, I just so much happened there, and then maybe you get used to that. Maybe that's just seeing stuff in Edinburgh. In the same way, I'm trying to think of the number of Edinburgh shows that have gotten out of Edinburgh and gotten longer, not with much more plot, but just slightly slower.
Well, in fairness, 6 doesn't have a plot.
No,
it's that's a concept musical as
but
well.
That for example has moved from 55 minutes to, I think it runs at 85 minutes now.
Yeah.
And similarly, it just means, there's obviously the bigger Mega 6 at the end and that kind of thing, but it just gives you slightly more breathing space that outside of Edinburgh I think you probably need.
It's that balance between pace and content, isn't it, in that sense? You can chop too much off, or you can pad things out. I love the pace of Edinburgh shows. Yeah. Usually, if people get it right, as you have in this, for example, it bubbles along very nicely and quickly, and you think that was lovely. If I was going to the theatre once a week and it was the only show I'd seen, I'd probably think, where did that go?
Yeah.
So, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this, but what might be your hopes for the show?
It's interesting
because it's on all the time here in Edinburgh, so it's people are having their real chance to see it, and they should. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it's selling really, really well, and I'd love it to have a future outside of Edinburgh. I have no idea what that would be. As ever, you can do an awkward little plea for people to come and fund you, but really, I think we'll see what happens. It's got a home run in Cambridge.
Immediately afterwards? Or?
At the start of October, I think the second week of October, it's got a home run in Cambridge at the ADC Theatre, which is where the Musical Theatre Society resides, usually. And then outside of that, there's no real plans, but we're so happy to. I'm sure we will keep kind of adjusting things, even if it's not with a performance in mind. There will be things that we are learning, and as ever, just doing multiple shows, you just learn so much about what your show is.
And don't the audience tell you as well?
Yeah,
I know you're straight off the train today, so I know you're about to go to see it in its Edinburgh context. It's a pity at one level that I'm seeing you before rather than after seeing that, because I'd love to see what you think has changed or what surprises you. But of course,
in 10 days of shows,
and it'll probably be, not vastly different, but it will feel.
But I'm sure the feel will be very different. And I know that we'll want to. So the answer is no future other than the home run planned, but lots wishing.
But Cambridge is accessible, and there will be people both there and around that area who may want to see it. So I suppose the question must be then, how can people see it in Edinburgh, and how might people be able to see it in October?
So, if you fancy catching it in Cambridge, it's on the 16th to the 19th of October at 11 p.m.
And is there a website so that people can find it in October?
Yeah, the ADC Theatre website.
Oh, it's on the theatre website.
On the theatre website in Cambridge, yes.
ADC. Lovely. Well, that sounds marvellous. What next for you, Laurence? I'm always interested to know that. Do you have any irons in the fire? Either actual ones which you know are going to happen, or the dream of your master musical yet to come?
dream-wise, I mean, Edinburgh is such an amazing place, and I'd love to just keep bringing content back each year and just spending time and watching stuff, because I feel I leave the Fringe each year with as many ideas as I come with, really. Many more, because of just how much you see.
Well, it's a creative hub, isn't it? Yeah.
And other than that, I'm writing a pantomime in December with the Footlights, which is great fun, which is playing in Cambridge. And then other than that, just keeping the composing and music directing going, really, yeah.
And do you have a personal website that people can contact you on?
I don't, but you're very welcome to follow me on Twitter. I'm at LT-Stannard.
Oh, it's 2 N's.
2 N's. Yes.
It looks like Lieutenant then, doesn't it, presumably?
Lieutenant.
No, LT. It looks like Lieutenant Stannard.
Oh, yes.
It gives you a military air unexpectedly. Well, Laurence, I must say it's delightful to see... Well, it was delightful to see your show, first of all, because I loved it. I thought it was very funny.
Nice.
But the score, in particular, I think is a glory. So, and I'd like to hear that again. In fact, if you ever release it on SoundCloud or anything like that, do let us know.
Yeah.
It's also lovely to see you, and to see, I hope you won't mind me sounding terribly patronising, but how you've developed or expanded your repertoire.
Thanks.
Because this show, your last show I enjoyed a great deal, as you know.
Yeah.
This show I also enjoyed a great deal, but it feels like you're widening your horizons.
Sure.
And that seems very promising for the future as well. So I have a suspicion we may meet in classrooms across Edinburgh and elsewhere over the next few years. I certainly hope so. But thank you very much for talking to me.
Pleasure.
Musical talk. Well, there we are, Laurence T-Stannard. And bless him, he had literally just got off a train into a tremendously wet Edinburgh to see his show, which had already been running for a week or so, when I sat down and chatted to him for that interview. Now, if you like the sound of Unexpected Item in the bagging area, there is a chance to see it. Because, as Laurence said, it's going to be produced in a theatre in Cambridge in the middle of October. Go along to the website adctheatre.com, which is the website for the ADC Theatre, which is in Park Street in Cambridge. And there you can book tickets if you wish to do so to see Unexpected Item in the bagging area, which is on at the theatre between the 16th and the 19th of October. I do think it's wonderful when shows from Edinburgh are able to go elsewhere. And it's refreshing, and I say this even as a Londoner, but it isn't always to London. But then again, as a product of the Cambridge University Musical Theatre Society, I suppose it's not that much of a surprise that you'll be able to see it in Cambridge. If you live round there, or you can travel, think about going to see it. Well, I'm afraid it's probably early closing now for this episode. Not that anyone does that anymore, but it's a blast from the past and a bit of a memory for those of you who still have memories, and will do to finish this episode. But it won't do as well as this word. Goodbye. This episode of Musical Talk edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2019, except for the song where the copyright remains with the creators. And my thanks to Laurence T-Stannard for allowing me to play his song in this show. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, at Musical Talk Thos. So I'm going to ask you for a level, first of all, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
The traditional question is, what did you have for breakfast?
I didn't actually have any breakfast. I was late for my train today, and I rushed straight to the station without having any breakfast at all.
Did you have something on the train?
No. I'm going to go grab some lunch after this.
I was going to say, why aren't you eating your shoes?
Yes, I ate a lot last night. It's fine.
Very good. Yeah, I'm on the train back this evening, so I'll get myself a sandwich. There probably will be food, but I can't rely on it.
Yes.
And if we are trapped outside King's Cross until 2 o'clock in the morning, I might need more than a banana. So.
I think that's the lovely thing about a character piece where everything stems from that. Everything stems from the character. I think that's the love.
I'll cut that bit
and
start again. Yeah, and then you'll sound smooth.
Yeah. Because Jamie and Maya are Cambridge Footlights and they're sensationally busy. Maya's doing It Takes Two to Tango. It Takes Three to Tango even.
You're tired, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you want to say that again?
Yeah, I will.
That comes in at 35 minutes. So
Lovely.
That's pretty much exactly right. So
Brilliant.
as long as you're happy with that, mostly
So
in an
happy,
hour,
yeah.
I'll take out all the ums and ers and
Brilliant.
that we both do.
Yes.
You know, they say to err is human. No one errs more than I do. So perfect. And you are my last interview.
Oh, really?
I've got this show and then I'm on the train.